Okay, good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me here this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. What I try to do within the very brief time I have available with you is to actually argue that the easiest and the cheapest way to help all children, all students, learn the global competencies is to let them play more. And by play, I mean the natural thing that children and many of us adults and animals do when we set them free. And for the next 15 or 20 minutes, when I talk about play, I particularly think about things that children do when they are by themselves outdoors. So for me, that is the highest order of play. So let me start by asking this question. Put your hand up if you have your own children. Almost everybody, we do. Put your two hands up if you have two children or more. Many, wonderful, very good. Now, let me ask you another question. Think about yourself at the age of your own children or any one of them, okay? So go back in time when you were at the age of your own child, the youngest one, okay? And now my question is that, based on your memories of your childhood, do you think that you played more than your own children play today? And if you think so, put your hand up and look around. Many of us, we think like this. So let me start by this, because my research, what I do at the University of New South Wales in Sydney right now, is particularly looking at this thing, what is happening with play. What is the state of play in the communities and schools? And in many parts of the world, this is from our research, that most of the parents in Australia, based on our data, say that their own children spend much less time playing than they did when they were at the age of their own children. Of course, this is not yet a global evidence, but this same data comes from the United States. My colleagues who are researching the same thing in the United States found this one, that almost 90% of parents believe that we are forcing our children to grow up too quickly. Do you agree? Some of you do, okay? The third one, and this comes from the Lego Foundation. Lego Foundation is one of those most active advocates of play and children's play, and this is from their Play Well report that was recently, a few months ago, published. Just look at some of those figures and numbers there, and they all point to the same direction, that our children are not playing more, they are actually playing much less than we used to do when we were children, or just going back about 20 years ago. Now, one of these pieces of evidence, particularly this one, is really alarming. Take a look at this. It says that 1 of 5 children, according to this survey and the research, say that they are too busy to play. That the children are too busy to go out and play or play indoors. Now, my question to you is that, why do you think this is happening? And I argue that this is a global thing here in the UAE, in Australia certainly, and in Finland, where I come from. Everywhere the same. Why this is happening? What do you think? It may be because of the school, for sure. The children around the world are spending more time, if not in school, but the school-related things. And the other one is this, right? Many children spend far too much time on playing games and social media and other things, okay? Back home in Australia, it's the same as in Finland, that on average, a teenager who goes to school spends about 8 to 9 hours every day with the screens, okay? So what does it mean? This may be behind this declining of play, but let's take a look at what does it mean for our children and our families? Now, when I talk about play and children, I'm not only talking about talking to you people as teachers. I'm also speaking to you as parents, because I believe that this teaching for global competencies is equally a responsibility of us parents than it is to your teachers, right? And that's the way we can find the solution. So this is my younger son, and just like any children, sometimes he doesn't feel well. And this is the moment when he was not feeling very, well, happy, okay? So he was getting ill. And when your own child is getting ill, and when you realize that if you don't happen to be a doctor, you realize that something is wrong, what do you do? When your own child gets ill, what do? You take the phone and you call somebody. You call a neighbor? No. You call a Santa Claus? No. You call a medical doctor, right? A pediatrician, okay? And then you take your child to see the pediatrician, right? And the pediatrician, if she or he is qualified, very quickly realizes that, okay, this is the thing, and these are the 3 things you need to do very carefully. What do? You go back home, and you do exactly as the doctor ordered, right? Because the most important thing for you is to get your child well. But guess what? Now, when we look at the situation globally, okay, with these children like mine and yours, this is what has been happening during the last 20 years. That not only their health has declined in most parts of the world, but particularly their mental health has been declining, according to the national statistics around the world. This is true again in Finland, this is true in Australia and the United States and most other countries, okay? And there you see some of those symptoms that are pretty serious, right? Depression and anxiety and many other things. Look at the last one over there, that many children around the world don't sleep enough, right? Let me ask you this. If you have a primary school-age child, what is the doctor's order for a daily sleep for a primary school-age child? What do you think? More than that. 12 hours. Call your doctor. If you don't believe, call your doctor now and ask this, and they will tell you 12 hours is good. 11 hours every day is okay, but 12 is better. But most of these kids around the world are hardly sleeping 10 hours. Some of them, primary school age kids, sleep less than 8 hours a day. And that's not good. They're not going to learn global competencies or anything at all if this is happening. Now, the other thing that is happening simultaneously, of course, is this what we spoke about. That the children are spending much more time with all kinds of gadgets and technology and TV and games and other things. And my presentation is not about that, but I'm just saying that if children spend 5 hours, 8 hours, sometimes 10 hours with those devices, that time is away from reading, sleeping, and certainly from playing. And that's why we parents and teachers, we have to keep this particular thing in mind. So, for our research, we wrote a book with my colleague Bill Doyle. It came out a couple of months ago, actually, called Let the Children Play. And we interviewed a number of experts around the world, and many of those experts were pediatricians. In other words, they were doctors for children. And this is what many of the doctors said. First of all, there's a community in the United States called American Academy of Pediatricians. It represents 70,000 pediatricians in the United States. Do we have any pediatricians in the room? Any children's doctors? We should actually, if we talk about these things. Okay? And this is what they say. They say many things, and they have been saying, medical doctors have been saying this for many years, but recently, during the last 2 or 3 years, pediatricians around the world have stepped forward and said that, listen, people, remember the story of my son when I took him to the clinic, and I did exactly as the doctor said. They're saying that if you care of your child's health and well-being, happiness, now we are giving you orders. And the doctor's order is to play with your children. And this is equally to the parents and equally to the teachers in the school. Medical doctors are extremely concerned about this declining time for children to play. This is the other one. Medical doctors, pediatricians again are saying that if we are really concerned about teaching our children something that they can use in their lives, if our aim is to help them to be successful in their lives, we need to let them play more. Okay, it's as simple like this. And even World Health Organization, WHO, that represents all the countries and all kinds of health, said this just a few months ago. To grow up healthy, children need to sit less and play more. Do you need more evidence than that? No, we don't. We have to do something about this. And I have a good colleague and friend he teaches at the Harvard Medical School, with whom I do research with. And he's also a pediatrician at the Boston Children's Hospital. And I invited him to come to tell you what he thinks about play. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Rich, the pediatrician and director of the Center on Media and Child Health at Boston Children's Hospital and Harvard Medical School. In today's busy world, it's hard for parents to know how their children should spend their free time. Should they be taking extra classes or playing more sports? Or can they be allowed to direct their own play or even to daydream? 88% of parents think their kids are pressured to grow up too quickly and are overscheduled. Yet many of them still have them take extra classes or sports because they're afraid that they'll fall behind in some way, that they won't be able to compete in the fast-paced world of today. But the reality is that play is absolutely essential for kids to grow up smart, healthy, happy, and capable of handling the social demands of everyday life. Make time for your child to play, particularly free play, in which she or he is able to make decisions about where they go, what they do, what they're doing with their time. Because when children lead play, they build empathy, they figure out how to resolve conflict, and they learn how to negotiate all of the variables of daily life. More play today leads to a healthier, happier, more successful tomorrow.
Let me close here and give you a couple of ideas, because most of you are teachers. Now you're thinking about, okay, so what about this learning through play? What does it mean? Does it mean that I can just ask children in the classroom to do whatever they want to do, or ask them to go out and play? That's fine too. But if you really want to develop your teaching from the point of view of learning through play, where play is integrated in this thing, these are the five dimensions according to our research and research from our colleagues would be helpful. Okay? The first one here is the self-directedness. It means that the more you let your children to drive the learning, in other words, give them freedom to decide how they learn, what they do, and with whom, the better. The higher the kind of order of this dimension is. The next one is the intrinsic motivation, meaning that you need to be sure that the children, when they learn through play, that they do it because they want to do it. That they should not do it because you ask them to do it, or somebody else is doing, or they do it for the exam, or something like this. The third one is the positive emotions. Of course, play has to be fun. There has to be joy present over there, at least most of the time. Then the fourth dimension that you need to think about is what we call the process orientation. That kids do it for the sake of doing it, and not necessarily to produce or have an outcome, which may be interesting and important sometimes, but here the process is important. And finally, that the children, when they learn through play, that they can use their imagination. That's where the creativity comes into the picture. So take a look at these 5 dimensions when you design your teaching and learning periods so that play is there, and try to move away from this shallow play to what is the deeper play. This is just an example what it would look like. You know, if you design carefully your lesson or project, the loadings of these 5 dimensions should be high, okay? Not necessarily to the peak with everyone, but many of those things. And that's why we call this a deep play or deeper play when children do it like this. So, for example, and my question here, if we had more time, I would ask you to turn to your neighbor and think about your own work in a classroom or school, and try to imagine a teaching method or methodology that you would think naturally would give you opportunities to look at these 5 dimensions and integrate play more closely into what you do. Has anybody an idea of a single method that you have used where children can play probably more than they could in a situation like this? Okay. Excellent. Very good. You know, these are some of those things that most of you probably use in your classrooms: project-based learning, problem-based learning, cooperative learning, role play. There are many of those things. Just think about those things when you next go to your design drawing board for your lessons. So my conclusion here, as I said in the beginning, that play can be the cheapest and easiest way to promote and help all the children learn these important habits of minds and skills that we have been talking about here in this conference. And to make my point even clearer, I want to close with a short poem, if you wish, and bring you the childish perspective to this picture, because we should have children here as well, right, to tell us what to do. And with this one, I say thank you very much. Thanks for coming here. But take a look at this poem before you go.
We live in a world of our own making. We are part of a lost generation, and we refuse to believe that a childish perspective can change the world. We must tell our children becoming an adult is so much more important than being a child. We treasured the childish perspective once upon a time, but this is no longer true. We live in a grown-up world. Society tells us adultness is something we should strive for. No longer will it be said that we must celebrate childish behaviour. It is evident now more than ever that our generation is apathetic and doesn't care. It is wrong to presume that children can give us hope.
Children can give us hope. It is wrong to presume that our generation is apathetic and doesn't care. It is evident now more than ever that we must celebrate childish behaviour. No longer will it be said that adultness is something we should strive for. Society tells us we live in a grown-up world, but this is no longer true. Once upon a time, we treasured the childish perspective. Being a child is so much more important than becoming an adult. We must tell our children a childish perspective can change the world, and we refuse to believe that we are part of a lost generation. We live in a world of our own making.
Thank you very much. Thank you.